mistake. Good morning, everyone. So today we're going to discuss about Indian polity, NCERT, Social and Political Life 1, 6th RT, 6th class NCERT, Social and Political Life 1. The entire concept we are going to discuss in this class. So understanding diversity. So first we are talking about understanding the diversity. Diversity, right, means the presence of the various forms, right, in a particular geographical area. So we are talking about diversity. So when it comes to the diversity, India is called a subcontinent. So why India is called a subcontinent? Because a continent is a larger area which consists of diverse of climatic cultures, the climate of diversity of features, the diversity of organisms living on that area. So with all the diversity of cultures, religions, ethnic identities, so that's why we call it a continent. Why the India is called a subcontinent? Because India consists of such a huge diversity which usually happens in a continent, right? So what do we have here? India is a home for the largest number of different socio-cultural groups based on race, religion, language, etc. So we have various sects. When India got independence, many political thinkers has commented that democracy in India will not survive because of that huge diversity. Because making laws is extremely difficult. Because of the diversity India holds, the making the laws is extremely difficult. So people thought that India cannot become a successful democratic country. But India is one of the largest democracies in the world right now, and has been very successful in drafting the laws. Thanks to Dr. B.R. Ambedkar for drafting such a beautiful constitution. And in what different forms do we have the diversity? The very first one is the language, right? So in India we have different languages. So precisely we have 1600 spoken languages, 1600 spoken languages, and with and without dialects, with without dialect, that means with or without script, right? And also India has 22 official languages as per the Official Languages Act, right? 22 recognized official languages under the 8th schedule. This is important. 8th schedule is for the official languages, right? So official languages. So Indian languages are broadly classified into 5 types: Indo-Aryan language, Dravidian language, Austro-Asiatic language, Sino-Tibetan, and others. As you can see, Indo-Aryan language, Hindi, Sanskrit, Urdu, Bengali, Kashmiri, Marathi. So the most of the North Indian languages, and Dravidian languages are the South Indian, Malayalam, Kannada, Tamil, Telugu. These are the Dravidian languages. Austro-Asiatic languages. These are spoken in the tribal languages of Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Odisha, right? And Sino-Tibetan language, China in Tibet languages, originated from the China and the Tibet. These are the Assamese, Manipuri, and the Bodo, etc. And the other languages like Andamanese, Sentinelese, which are restricted to the small number of population. So these are the different languages. We have the language diversity, and we are speaking about more than 1600 languages. And the language has been also the major issue, because initially the India has been divided based upon the administrative facilitation, right? Based upon the administrative simplification, the geographical areas were divided, but later the Putti Sriramulu of Andhra has demanded the Telugu speaking state. So initially the Andhra used to be the Madras province. So along with the Madras Tamil speaking people, the Putti Sriramulu has gone for the indefinite hunger strike and eventually gave his life for a separate statehood. So in Andhra is the first state that has been formed based upon the language, based on the linguistic basis, right? And later all the states demanded asking for the separate state, where it was finally accepted through the State Reorganization Act of 1856. And even now this issue has been there. Even now the division of the states is being proposed based upon the language they are speaking, or the culture, or the development, right? And next one is the race. So what is the race? The race is nothing but a specific section of people which looks kind of similar. So we are calling them the race, right? So they have particular phenotype, right? The resemblance is a bit different. Resemblance is a bit different. So we have in India we have the Negritos, Proto-Australoids, Mongoloids, Aryans, Dravidians. So these are the 5 different types of races present in India. The first one, Negrito, tribes of Andaman and the Nicobar Islands, and the Proto-Australoids found in the hills and the forested tracts of central and the southern India, and Mongoloids, hilly tribes of northeast India, Sikkim and Ladakh, Aryans, northern states, and Dravidians, southern states. Right? So even though we are yes, we are talking about the different races in India, and we have to speak about one important aspect called racial discrimination. So discriminating the people on how they look or on the race they want, thinking that one race is superior over the other. Right? Scientifically speaking, there is no pure race. There is no pure race. So all of us are hybrids. Right? The next one. So as you can see, right? So the races and the languages they speak, how they are actually spread. So these are the Dravidian languages, these are the Aryan languages, right? So these are the Sino-Tibetan languages which are spoken over here, right? So these are Austro-Asiatic languages, right? So this is the racial differences, and this is the language they are speaking based upon the map. Please do remember the map. And next one, religion. So distribution of Indian population as per the religion. We have the vast religions, right? So the most the largest population follows the Hinduism, as you can see, and many of the states have Hindu majority, but 7 states have the Hindu as the minority. Not always the states have the Hindus as the majority. There are a few states. Overall, if you take entire geographical area of India, so obviously Hindus are the major population, but there are about 7 states where the other religions are the majority, right? So India state is secular. This is important. So being secular means India being secular means state doesn't have a religion. State doesn't follow a religion. This is an important question that was asked in UPSC mains. What is the difference between Indian type of secularism and the Western secularism? Please remember this question and try to answer that. Climatic groups. So in India we have different climatic groups as well. India usually falls between the tropics, vastly falls between the tropics. The tropic of Cancer passes through India, and the other area falls under the temperate regions. And India has Himalayas, where we have the cold deserts, and we have the Thar desert because of the Aravalli ranges. So because of this, India has diverse climatic groups. There are 5 major climatic groups which are actually present, right? So what are those climatic groups? As you can see here, we have the tropical monsoon type of climate, deciduous type of climate, the wet and dry deciduous in that way, and we have the arid region, we have the semi-arid region, we have the frigid region, right? So these are the different types of climatic groups present in India, and we have the evergreen forests, right? These are the different types of climatic groups in India. And as you can see, the religion, right, about 79% is Hinduism, and the next place occupied by the Islam, and the third place is the Christianity. These are the very minor religions present in India. And the caste, right, since the past 2000 years the caste has been playing a very important role in the culture of India, and we have seen the caste based discrimination within India, right? In India we have different types of castes. We call it Varna system or the 4 castes, right? The reasons for the diversity. What are the reasons for the diversity? First one, the historical reasons, where the mixture of different religions, languages, and ethnicities due to the invasion by the foreigners who settled here. Right? Because of that, we have huge amount of the diversity. The many people migrated from the Central Asia and the East Asia or the West Asia, and they have come to India and they have settled over this area. They own this area. So because of this, we have the greater amount of diversity. And the geographical divisions like the Vindhya and the Satpuras, which has made the demarcation between the Aryans and the Dravidians. So the Vindhyas and the Satpuras are passing horizontally just segregating the India into two halves, and one area was occupied by the Aryans, the other area occupied by the Dravidians, as you can see. So the next one, availability of the dense and the isolated forest, that has resulted in the growth of the tribal culture. And since India has been divided into the smaller kingdoms since the early times, many local languages and the distinctive culture has been developed, right? India has been divided into smaller kingdoms because of which their unique culture has been developed, say their language has been developed, right? These are the reasons. And what are the advantages of this diversity? Strengthening love and tolerance and promoting amity and the unity and openness to other diverging views. So because of a huge diversity of India, even if the other person is talking about his opinions which are not in synchronous with our opinions, still we keep loving the person and still we have the tolerance towards the person because we accepted the diversity. And it is the identity that India is asserted for long and three international forums, right? So if India speaks in the international fora, India doesn't speak for a single identity, India speaks for the huge amount of diversity present, right? India doesn't speak for single religion, India doesn't speak for single race, India doesn't speak for single language, India speaks for all of the culture. And the diversity of the culture translates into the diversity of ideas and the innovations, as you can speak, right? So because of the diversity of the culture and the ideas which comes through that culture is brings diverse innovations and ideas, we call that Medica effect. We call this Medica effect. And the rich heritage and the cultural resistance of the diversity has enormous potential for the tourism, as you can speak. And the geographical diversity creates the rich reserve of the flora and the fauna, benefiting the environment, as you can speak. And the disadvantages, because of the huge amount of the diversity which India holds, obviously there will be social tensions and the conflicts of opinions present because of the diversity and the diverging views. Because of this, we are being affected by a few things called communalism, racialism, and the linguism, etc., which sometimes affects the social fabric, but still we stay together strong. What ensures the unity in diversity? What actually ensuring the unity and diversity? The very first thing is the historical factors which has helped strengthen and sustain the values of the mutual existence. So it is not just the few hundreds of years where we have come together and started living together. So we have lived together since the past many centuries, right? Because of the historical factors, we started to live together with the great amount of diversity India holds. And the freedom movement united India politically and economically and created basis of the social unity. The freedom movement, the India freedom has actually made Indians come together to fight against the common enemy, right? And we have come together strongly and we started living together since then. In independent judiciary which has successfully reined and divisible tendencies of the government, the very important thing to ensure the unity in diversity is the independent judiciary. If the judiciary is dependent on one or the other factors, obviously there cannot be justice given to the greater amount of diversity in India. So independent judiciary is ensuring that the justice is given despite the differences, despite the diversity, despite the caste, despite the religion, despite the languages, despite the different places of birth. The constitutional provisions. The main important reason ensuring the unity in such a greater diversity is the constitutional provision, the fundamental rights, directive principles of the state policy, fundamental duties, the freedom for the interstate trade and commerce, and following the government measures ensuring the unity and integrity. So these are the main reasons for the unity existing in such a huge diversity in India. So when it comes to the DPSP, so DPSP can be segregated into three areas: the socialistic principles, the Gandhian principles, and the neoliberal. So we have to the main UPSC mains questions might ask in these three different areas. And the laws such as Prevention of Atrocities Act, Protection of the Civil Rights Act, and the Forest Rights Act, the policies of reservations ensuring the political and economic justice to the downtrodden societies and social justice as well, and the schemes like the Stand Up India and Padho Pradesh, Nai Manzil for the minorities and the oppressed sections, events like the Celebrate the Unity and Diversity like Republic Day, Bharat Pav, Independence Day, the cultural schemes like Ek Bharat, Ek Bharat, Shresth Bharat, Hriday Prasad, etc., which are making all the people of diverse cultural areas come together. So these are the few things which are actually making the people come together and stay despite the diversity India holds. And the threats because of that huge diversity is communalism, racialism, and the linguism. Communalism, right? So Hindu Rashtra, cow Vigilantism, as we are seeing today, the love jihad claims. So the increase of communal radicalization is growing day by day in India. And the regionalism, saying that asking for different territory or independent territory or different statehood based upon the region or the culture he holds. And the linguism based upon the language which you speak, right? So recently the Hindu has been imposed on the South Indian states, where Tamil Nadu resisted with a huge force. So these are the threats which we are dealing when it comes to the diversity. And the casteism, as we are seeing even now, even though the caste based oppression is addressed in many fora, but still the caste based oppression is continuing until recently. And the racism is increasing day by day. So it is not as like radical as you see in the Western countries, but still the India is also the victim of the racism and the separatist movements in the northeast and the Naxalism. So these are the threats to the Indian diversity. And the diversity and discrimination, this is one area in the NCERT 6th class where we are talking about the difference and the prejudice, stereotypes, the caste, the mahars, and the constitution. These are the few areas where we have to get used to. The first one, difference and the prejudice. So what is the fundamental difference between the differences and the prejudice? Difference is nothing but, so based upon the comparison, if you can say that these people are different and these people are different, that is different. Prejudice is something like unfavorable opinion or the feeling that we have formed before knowing the other person, right? The prejudice is something that I feel the Aryans are like this only, the Dravidians are like this only, or the people who speak Hindi are like this only, the people who speak Tamil are like this only. So it is not by knowing the other person, it is not by knowing the differences, it is by default I have that opinion despite how the people are. So it is the prejudice, right? So it doesn't have any reason, it doesn't have any knowledge, it doesn't have any thought, right? We won't be giving any reason to it, but still we feel that the people are different and we start to act accordingly. That is what the prejudice is. And the stereotype is nothing but the generalization of the section of population. That means Dravidians are all like this, Indians are all like this, Europeans are all like this, the Buddhists are all like this. That is the stereotype, right? So the women should be like this. So that is generalization, right? We call it stereotype. And the caste, so caste is nothing but the rigid social stratification present in India, right? Which is characterized by the hereditary status, endogamy, and the social barriers sanctioned by customs, law, and religion. And the mahars are the important social groups within the Indian state of Maharashtra and the surrounding states, right? So it is related to endogamy, right? The caste. And also the constitution, the fundamental law, written or unwritten. So we have to understand what is the difference between the written constitution and the unwritten constitution. Written constitution is codified, unwritten constitution is non-codified. That is the fundamental difference. And so when we are talking about the differences which are present or the discrimination present, right? So we have to know about the apartheid in South Africa. So the apartheid is a group of laws that were imposed on the major section of population, the major section, the blacks, by the minority section, the whites. The rules were framed by the whites to suppress the blacks, right? So it has come from the slavery. So under these apartheid laws, the one of the thing is the Bantu Authorities Act, which re-established the tribal organization in the Black Africa, and the promotion of the Bantu Self-Government Act, so which has created the African homelands called Bantustans, where the Africans should stay in those areas only, and those lands are without any resources, and those lands are the arid regions without any water, without any facilities, without any basic needs. Next one, Bantu Homeland Citizenship Act, which made every black South African, irrespective of the actual resident, citizen of only the Bantustan, not the South Africa. Right? They were denied the citizenship. And Bantu Education Act. So, as per this particular act, they were given education only to serve the whites. only to serve the whites, only as a workers. So that is how the education was destroyed, and the University Education Act prohibited the establishment of universities for the non-white and provision of mixed marriages, which has made the racial marriages, that means interracial marriages, as illegal, and suppression of the Communism Act. So communism and its aims were broadly suppressed, and Indemnity Act, where the that made legal for police officers to act violently against the blacks. So these are the few apartheid laws which are totally discriminatory against the blacks, and now they were removed, they were withdrawn. And the next one is when it comes to the racial discrimination within India based on the caste, right? So there are a group of sections called the scheduled caste. Scheduled caste is nothing but enlisted caste which were affected by the untouchability since the past 2000 years, right? So the untouchability is abolished in India as per Article 17, the fundamental rights, and it says untouchability is any form is a crime, right? And also we have given laws based on the violations of these differences, right? So this is untouchability, right, which actually says that the upper caste people or the pure and the lower caste are impure, so that's why you cannot touch them. Untouchability in any form is a crime as per Article 17, the fundamental rights. Right to equality, a right to equality is from 14 to 18. And next one, racial discrimination. So racial discrimination between the blacks and the whites, right? So it started with the European imperialism, and also the racial discrimination has actually started with Atlantic slave trade, that means across the Atlantic. So when the European nations started to occupy the African territory, so they have taken the blacks as slaves and they traded in the European countries and the American countries as slaves, right? So that is Atlantic slave trade, and because of this, the racial discrimination has actually started. So scientifically speaking, there is no pure race, right? I have the genes of Africa, I have the genes of India, I have the genes of Aryans. So all the genes are accumulated together. So there is no pure race. There is no such thing called the pure race, impure race, or the superiors or a race or the inferior race. The next one is xenophobia and the racism. So please try to understand the term xenophobia. Phobia means hatred or something which you're not liking of, right? And the racism, they mostly overlap, but the difference is racism is discrimination based on the physical characteristics. Racism is based on the physical characteristic, how you look, phenotype as you speak, whereas xenophobia is discrimination based on the perception that someone is foreign or from the other community. As you can see, xenophobia, so the people from the northeast India, right, we say the Chinese, right, or the Tibetan. So we already think that the people are of this particular characters or this particular phenotypes or this particular thing are like this only. So that is xenophobia. Or the darker, if you see a person with a darker shade, immediately you start to hate the person, right, because of the xenophobia. So please try to understand the difference between the xenophobia and the racism, right? And the next one, the next topic we're going to discuss is the government. What is government and what different types of government do we have? This is the part 2, right? So the government is a system or the group of people governing an organized community, often a state and a country, where all the type of what is a government? Government is nothing but a body which was established by the people, right, to make laws or to for them to be governed, right? So in the government, what will happen? So we pass laws so that we can all follow, so that we can live together, right? So government is of different types. So we have monarchy, aristocracy, democracy, oligarchy, democracy, theocracy, and the tyrannies. So the mostly we follow the monarchy, democracy, right? Monarchy, democracy, the aristocracy, democracy, oligarchy, these are all long gone. We'll see. So when we talk about the levels of government in India, we have 3 levels of government: national level, state level, and the local level. Because so in India, we divided the India into the different states, right? So we call it federal structure. We call it federal structure, but Indian type of government is quasi-federal, quasi-federal or semi-federal. Quasi-federal or semi-federal. What is this quasi-federal? We were divided into the states, but we have a strong center. So we have a central government, we have a state government, and as well as the states were also divided into different constituencies called the municipalities and the panchayats. We call it local governments. Panchayats and municipalities, we call it local government. So these are the three levels of government present in India. So the local governments was actually established, were granted the constitutional status. They were granted the constitutional status by an amendment, 73rd and the 74th amendment, 73rd for the panchayats and the 74th for the municipalities in 1992, right? Amending the article 243, and adding two more schedules, schedule 11 for the panchayats and schedule 12 for the municipalities, right? And also the local governments is also spoken in schedule 7 under the state list, union list and the concurrent list. State list is nothing but the list of areas where the central government can make the laws on, and the state list is the group of areas where the states can make the laws on, and concurrent where the both union and state list can make the laws on. So that is present in the 7th schedule, as we have already spoken in the previous class, that 8th schedule is for languages, official languages. 8th schedule, 7th schedule is for the list, state list, central list and the concurrent list. Division of power, we say, division of power. The laws and the government. So the different laws passed by the government, there are different laws: criminal law, civil laws, common law and the statutory law. Criminal law, so based upon the crimes what law we have, and the civil laws, the based upon the household activities, right, the property kind of thing. So these are the civil laws, right? The common laws are the laws established by the court. If the court says something, you have an obligation to follow it. So these are the common laws, that is for everyone. And the statutory laws, statutory are the laws passed through the parliament. The laws passed by the parliament are the statutory laws, and the bodies created henceforth are the statutory bodies. And the types of government, we have the democracy, monarchy and the representative democracy, right? So democracy where the people rule, right? Democracy is nothing but rule by the people. Monarchy is nothing but there is an emperor, the supreme head, which is hereditary in nature, so we call it monarchy. And there is something called constitutional monarchy as well. Constitutional monarchy is something like you have the monarch as a nominal head, right? He is just for the nominal head, right? So whereas an absolute head, he is an executive head, right? So that is the difference between constitutional monarchy. You can take an example of the British, where the queen is a nominal head, right? So that is constitutional monarchy. And whereas representative democracy, where the citizens delegate authority with their elected representatives, right? That is representative. That means we are actually sending a few people to represent us, right? We are delegating the powers. And main types of democracy, as you can see the slide, you can pause it and you can see the slide. And the parliamentary and the presidential types of democracy. So when it comes to the democracy, we have two different types: direct democracy and indirect democracy. In the direct democracy, we have initiative, recall, referendum, plebiscite. Initiative, recall, referendum and plebiscite. These are the four different types of direct democracy. When it comes to indirect democracy, we have two different types: parliamentary and presidential form of democracy. Parliamentary and presidential form of democracy. And the features of presidential form of democracy, as you can see, it is present in America. Presidential form of democracy is being followed in America, right? So just a minute, give me a second. Hello, ma'am. Two president acts has, so my mistake. So the features of the presidential system. So when you talk about the features of the presidential system, so the president is the executive head, and he can veto any laws passed by the parliament, by the legislature, and he has a fixed tenure and cannot be removed by vote of no confidence motion, right? So there cannot be any no confidence motion passed against the president, and he has a fixed tenure of 5 years, and the president has the power to pardon or commute judicial sentences awarded to the criminals. Any punishment, any sentencing awarded to the criminals can be removed by the president, and the president is elected directly by the people. So that is the difference when it comes to the parliamentary system. So when it comes to the parliamentary system, as you can see, the president is a nominal head. President is a nominal head, and the pardon powers are also present by the president, right? And he has a tenure of 5 years, but he can continue to do so as long as the majority is there, and president is not directly elected by the people in the parliamentary system, and the executive head in the parliamentary system is the prime minister, not the president. So the feature of the parliamentary system, in the parliamentary system, the relationship between the legislature and the executive is there. The prime minister is the executive head, whereas the president is the legislative head, right? And the president has to act as per the aid and advice given by the council of ministers headed by the prime minister, and the executive responsible to the legislature, right? So executive is responsible, that means collective responsibility by the council of ministers. And the dual executive, we have the real executive and the titular executive. Nominal head is the president or the monarch, constitutional monarch, and the real head is the prime minister. And the secrets of the procedures, so all the cabinet meetings, what is happening in the cabinet meetings is cannot be given out, cannot be revealed to the general public. And the leadership of the prime minister, the head of the government is the prime minister. And the bicameral legislature, usually we have two houses in the legislature, the upper house and the lower house. The upper house we call it Rajya Sabha, and the lower house we have as Lok Sabha. And in the Lok Sabha we have the people representatives, and there is no fixed tenure. So why there is no fixed tenure? The prime minister can be the prime minister as long as he has the majority. There is no fixed tenure. He can continue to do so. The longest serving prime minister is Nehru. And monarchy. So in the monarchy, so we have the hereditary and the supreme authority is vested in the monarch, and sometimes we see that as the divinity. And the type of monarch, absolute and the limited monarch. Absolute monarch is the supreme head for the executive as well as the legislature, and whereas the constitutional monarch is nothing but he is just as a legislative head but not the executive head. Executive head will be the prime minister. Right, key elements of the democratic government. So the first one is the participation. The people participating is as per Article 19, right? So in the elements of the democratic government, the people participate by voting. Universal adult franchise. India has given the universal adult franchise to all the people. So that is right to vote. Other than that, we can participate through right to protest, the protest against the government, and right to raise your voice against the government, right? So under Article 19, and also accountability, conflict resolution, and the equality and justice. In this way, these are the different elements of the democratic government. So we should allow the people to participate, and there has to be accountability of the actions done by the government, and the conflict resolution. If the people are facing some issue, immediately they have to be resolved, and they should ensure equality and justice. And the next one, Panchayat Raj system. Right, this one we will be discussing in the next class.